Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering in Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're continuing on in the Survival Series 2, and in fact, continuing on, trying to anyway, continuing on in the building of our rather large and obnoxiously laggy space station. So this is rebooted, restarted, no change. So this is not a script issue. The game is interpreting this as a script issue, but a script is not too complex in one instance and then 5 minutes later becomes more complex. That it just doesn't work that way. Programming doesn't work that way. However, Space Engineers does. So if we click on recompile, we see it work for a couple seconds and then we go back to this. So one of the things that I know has kind of helped in causing this to do this, and I'll see if I can find it again because I just lose it. Sort alphabetical disassemble. There we go. If we set this to false, sometimes we get a little bit better luck. For example. So the good news is we can make this work, but in other instances, not gonna happen. So anyway, not going to fret over it at all, because that's just space engineers being space engineers. So the idea was I want to build a hangar. Now, what's going to be in this hangar? Let me go ahead and go off screen for just a moment. So what I want to do is virtually I have to apparently find it. So what I'm looking for is the fighter that we built in another series. But what I like to try and do... Oh, there it is. So I just need to move stuff around. There we go. One of the problems with filing everything away is sometimes you actually file it away so good it's lost. That would be me. Alright, so I don't actually remember what this thing looks like. So this was, we'll find this down here, this was the Ugly Duckling Fighter. So what I'm thinking is the idea here is that we would be able to put multiple renditions of this guy in a hangar bay. So I think the criteria for the hangar bay, obviously it's going to have to be at least 2 high, 2 blocks high. So this is 5 blocks, 6 blocks, 7 blocks high, and 2 blocks big equals 10 blocks small. So there's a block and a half approximately that would be able to go out. So we could either do 3 blocks high, which would actually be better, and certainly there's no rules against making something 2 blocks high versus 3 blocks high versus 5 blocks high. Sorry, I'm enjoying my tea. So, one of the things that I think is important here is just really kind of how this is going to work. So, my idea would be pretty much a row of connectors down the middle, and whether we do 5 of them or 10 of them or 6 or 8 or however many, we would basically have a fighter facing one direction and then the next fighter facing the other direction, and ultimately if the alarm sounds, we would be able to jump in and pick whatever one. The doors would automatically open for us and that sort of thing. So the question really is, I want to see what things here look like. This is all me. We'll turn this off, and sure enough we have an antenna. Yes, it is. Now the good news is this is entirely vanilla, so I didn't do anything. The only exception to that is there are 2 scripts running, and I don't really consider scripts to be non-vanilla because they're embedded. So to me, anything non-vanilla would equate to somebody having to load something specifically to make this work, and that is not the case. So scripts, when they are in a programming block on a saved blueprint, are embedded in the blueprint. So they don't have to load anything up. They are just they pretty much get it as is. So they load the blueprint, there they are. No extra effort required. So in this case we have WIP's Artificial Horizon is running here on the right side, and we have M-Master's LCD Automatic LCDs 2 running on the left side. This took quite a bit of energy and effort to figure out how to get everything to mount correctly, which is really to say, how do I mount something so it is visible, very visible to the pilot, but also out of the way. And this is what I really ended up with. There used to be 2 more forward thrusters here, which is to say forward-facing thrusters right here, and they got pulled out because this is within the arc of those thrusters. So I had to remove those and move them. So they ended up here. So now you have a thruster by your head. Imagine that. So I called this the Ugly Duckling, and indeed it is. It is rather a behemoth looking little fighter, but it is actually fairly effective. It is rather maneuverable, and it does pack a little bit of firepower. So if we look here, there are 3 Gatling cannons on each side, and then 5 more in the front. So 5 plus 6 equals 11. So this actually has 11 forward facing Gatling cannons, so it can put an awful lot of ordnance downrange. It also has twin missile launchers. So we have one port side, one starboard side, so you can run 2 missiles down the range simultaneously. So definitely a very capable fighter. Ugly as sin, but very capable. All right. So what ultimately are we going to do here? Well, one of the things I need to figure out, we're going to build the hangar bay, and my idea was you come screaming down this tunnel and end up right into the fighter bay. Below the fighter bay is going to be the main hangar bay. So the idea here is you come screaming through and you're already in the fighter bay, which means you jump into whatever fighter you happen to be assigned to and off you go. So you don't have to come in, run down the stairs, then climb into your fighter. You're already in the fighter bay. So the fighter bay is going to end up pretty much parallel, all in a straight line with this door here. So one of the things I have done in the past is, there we are, basically created the end pieces. So when I am building, I build things, or at least attempt to build things, so I can be fairly flexible in how I build things. So this is, I gotta flip this over and around, and then this would be lined up for all the different pieces. So all the conveyor systems would then line up. The differential here is that it's not going to be sloped. It's actually going to continue on outwards. So what were we considering? So the very first thing that we're going to do is extend these guys downwards. So we're going to go into, we're going to try and go into, apparently I'm completely locked up. I have no idea what that was. Apparently space engineers being space engineers. Okay, so the first one, we take it in. We're just going to do right angles here and aim this down. I don't know how far down that will go. This one is the same, and then finally the red one. And for the moment, we're going to focus on the main supply system, and the reason for that is I am going to be ultimately there has to be so let me go ahead and I think that is a straight through. So ultimately, we need connectors. So our fighter, in this case, needs something to connect onto. So connectors are going to help us do that. So my thought process here is that I'm going to need a connector every, I think, 3. And here's why I think 3, because we have a connector here, and go ahead and turn that off, turn that off. We have a connector which is, in this case, 3 wide, but the equivalent block is 5 wide. So that would be out to here. One more block is 3 wide, Okay, so I'm actually going to have at least 2 blocks in between, right? So I have this block, then I have this block, then the other fighter is this block, and then in. So I have to have at least 2 big blocks difference between these two. And then it's the matter of how many do I have facing each direction. So there would be 4, and then here's 5, 6. Ultimately, I'm going to have to stop building on this because it is too laggy to actually play. At this point, given the nature of my machine, which is to say it's a reasonably high-end machine, this world would not be playable on 90% of the machines out there already. So that's one of the downsides to this being as large as it is it's not playable. It's playable somewhat for me, but you can see I'm staggering every 10 seconds at this point. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure I counted correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is indeed 9. And 10. And then 11 would be the back up on this side. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and count one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so we have 10 fighters there. We will go ahead and paste this thing into the world a second time. And I'm not actually sure it's going to paste. Now, the doors are going to be an issue, and what I mean by that is that they're likely facing the wrong way. This one definitely is facing the wrong way. It's closing towards the other one, so not really an airlock. This one actually is facing the right way, which is a good thing, so it's pasted on correctly. So what we're going to do here, in the process of deleting the door, go ahead and put us in here the right way. 8 then becomes this is going to become hangar bay. So the tunnel X in this case, this is hangar bay. Hangar B, lock, outer, and I named everything unfortunately backwards. I started with the tunnels and then decided, okay, hangar A, lock, outer. So the tunnels ended up with the airlocks inner, which is kind of ass backwards actually. So, you know, your main spaces have the inners. So, anyway. In this case, this is hangar. We're going to go ahead and call this, well, there's probably only going to be one hangar. So this is A-TAC 1, or we could actually say 1 TAC A. So this is the A side, so hangar A, TAC 2. I'm going to Control C this. We're going to attempt to select, this is going to be B-TAC 1, and then B-TAC 2. So at this point, we change everything. We're going to go ahead and change it all to me. And finish. Okay, so having these guys facing around the correct way is always a good thing. So let's go ahead and add on the connectors. Now, the question is, what mods did I mandate here? Okay, this is actually going to work out okay. So, what I was looking at here, so there's no such thing as a vanilla airtight connector, which is really unfortunate. I think it's kind of stupid to not have a connector that you could run through a bulkhead. But the good news is there are a lot of yeah, that was good. Pasted in the wrong place. There are a lot of mods out there that provide an armored connector or a connector that's airtight. So there are plenty of them out there, but you ultimately have to put in a mod, which is kind of, don't like that, but as they say, it is what it is. The good news is, because I'm using these armor blocks down here, the armor blocks, the armor conveyors, are indeed airtight. So basically what I'm going to have is a bulkhead here, or an overhead here, that makes this airtight. So we're still going to be okay airtight wise. What I do need to do on this side, so we'll go ahead and flag 5. We'll go ahead and, this is why an undo feature would be so nice. When Space Engineers does something absolutely stupid, then you just Control Z and it's fixed. done that one before I changed colors, but hey, no biggie. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is really figure out how wide this needs to be. So what I'm going to do is go back over, we're playing with light armor, not really because light is any better or worse than anything else. This particular station has shields, so I'm not terribly worried about things, but it is a station, which means ultimately I think I'm going to make I'm gonna make everything so it has heavy armor. Alright. We have done 4. So we are 2 and then 2 more. So that should be symmetrical now. I think. Yeah, looks like it. Alright. So what we're going to do is drag this all the way to the other end, and that should be, yep, that looks like about right. So here's the idea. We're going to go ahead and copy this. So it's going to sit there. I'm only going to paste a couple of these because the lag is so extreme at this point that I think attempting to paste more of them in would be silly. But let me demonstrate what I was intending on doing. So these would be facing in opposite directions. So they would be able to make it out with no issues at all. So here's what we're going to attempt to do. We're going to go ahead and get in this. We're going to V to get out of the ship. We're going to actually land this guy but not connect. So what I want to do, and of course one of my problems, which I need to go ahead and remedy, is that the ownership right now is not set. So I got to do that. So okay, connectors. Let's go ahead and Control A, transfer to me. Yes. All right. Now, one of the things, logically, this was the first one I put in. So this one should be hangar and fighter 01. So that is a Control C. Then we're going to go over here to the next one, and this should be number 3. Yeah. Okay. So because I pasted them in order, then we should be all right. So 4 should be 03, 5 V04, V05, 6, 7, 7, So now that these are ownership is the same, so that's one of the caveats with connectors is ultimately they have to be the same, which is to say the same owner. Okay, so in this case I am way off. So the connector is, if I use for visual cues the forward thruster assemblies on each side, those are parallel with the connector there. So in this case, I should be able to go down at some point. Strangely, it is listing. Oh, I guess I am indeed that far off. There we go. So ready and ready is what I want to see. So in this case, the landing gear is ready, as well as the connector. Now I've got stuff in here, so I don't really want to do anything with the connector. So I'm going to go ahead and set the landing gear as locked, and then move to the next vessel here. Well, maybe the other, so I'll shift sides here eventually. All right, V to get myself outside, slightly sideways, and then downwards without Alright, so I want to go backwards just slightly. Okay, so once that stabilizes, then we should be able to do the same thing here. So a 6 to lock the landing gear, and then a T to get out. Now if I were really being intelligent, we'd go ahead and do a Y and turn everything off, which actually is not a bad idea. That way we're not burning ice, we're not burning uranium to keep everything going, and ultimately these guys are exactly where they need to be. So T to jump out there. We'll go back over to this guy here and do the same thing here. So he is locked to the deck already. She, as the case may be. Y, again, Yankee, which will shut down that particular unit. T to get out of the cockpit, and then we're going to shift sides. And then we'll do the same thing here. So T to jump into the cockpit, V so I have my outer view. In this case I am almost lined up, so slightly forward, then down. We're going to thrust just slightly to the starboard, and then down. There we go. It should line everything up. We have a ready and a ready. So we're going to go 6 to lock landing gear down, which all three went green. Y to depower the craft. T to exit the craft. And then finally our last test craft here. V, so we have an external view. We want to go ahead and line up, so we're going to back up just slightly. So we can use the one next to us here as a guide. So I went back a slightly bit too far. We're going to thrust to the port. And then thrust downwards to get us hopefully connected. Yep, there she is. Thankfully that kind of aligns itself and then stops moving, and then we do a 6 to lock ourselves. 6 to lock ourselves. 1, 2, 3 went green, which is exactly what we want, and then Y to power down everything. There we go. And T to exit the cockpit. So this is what I had in mind for the fighter bay. So you basically, as you come through the door, you run in. You're assigned to fightercraft number whatever, so you run down the side aisle here and then into your fightercraft. So room for 10 fightercraft, which is a great thing. As we can see here, we can get by with 2. So this guy is too high. However, I think it would be much better for us to go 3 high. So 3 high it's going to be. Now, how wide does a hangar bay need to be? In this case, we are just putting in for fighters. Now, is that significant, or do we have other considerations here? So I would actually like to be able to use the hangar bay for other things, which means how big the hangar bay then becomes a function of how big does that lower hangar bay really need to be. In this case, I'm several blocks, looks like about 2 beyond, yep, 2 and a little bit greater than 2 on both sides. So this is actually plenty sufficient room to do whatever I need to do for this guy. So let's go ahead and at least get the idea put together for building the roof. So I'm going to go back into number 4 because I actually want to move one more. We have one more of course, why would it select? We have one more conveyor system up here, and this conveyor system is really kind of important to what we do. I'm going to change some things. So we're going to do a T here. So just so we can see, the T is going to go oh, you know what? This is not a T. This is actually a 5. It's a cross. So, and here's why. We are going to go a elbow and then elbow. So we're coming in, we're going out, but we're also connecting these two in here. Why are we connecting these two in here? Show you that in just a minute. And then this is the number 3, which ultimately is, I hope, going to go over the top. Nope, let's go up one more. So this is going to be a 4, a straight through, and then we will do the elbow. So we're going to start out with the black because everything here is black. And in this case, it's going to butt right up against this, so we don't really have to worry about anything else. But this end is going to be black. So I'm going to turn on mirroring, and the reason I'm going to turn on mirroring is because I really want to see everything that's going on here. idea what that was. For some reason that pasted in. And we're going to change that block out because it no longer needs to be a slope. And slope. Okay, so if we really wanted to maintain our whole tiger premise here, which we do, then we're going to go ahead and change a few things. So we're going to change colors once we get above and below our plane here. So in this case, we're going to delete our pieces and in all the way out to the edge. So the question is, how much are we wanting to come out? So we're going to go ahead and put these pieces in for sake of calling it flooring. The question here is, again, how far do we want to come out? And I'm going to go ahead and escape because I have an idea. I think I would like to see going to do a little bit of cheating here. This is a catwalk plate. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that way. And the reason I'm putting this here is because we're actually going to put windows in here. So this is a 3x3 window, and we want to put one window here and then another window right in front of that. So we'll give some protection because bulletproof glass really isn't as bulletproof as it somewhat appears. All right. Question is, how big of a hangar bay should a hangar bay be? Here's what I think. Let's go. So this is, there's 2 windows wide and 3 windows. Let's go with that. I think that will be pretty good. Third time's a charm. All right. I'm going to go ahead and this is actually going to be on here. We're going to rotate this around and then come up. There we go. Don't know exactly how far down we're going to go yet, so let's go a bunch. We'll figure that out in a minute. In the interim, let's go ahead and put our bulkhead in, which is right there. And actually not going to do anything there yet. This here is going to be a little bit unique, I think. Just have to figure out how I want to do it. So the question is, do we want to do sloping in all directions? That one went too far. 2 more, and those in. And now the question is, do we do windows over the top, or do we do something else? So for starters, let's go ahead and get the pieces in. So this ultimately is going to go all the way across. I'm going to cheat and do plain here just because, and actually disassemble this top as I go. So this is the one that I don't want. So this basically is going to take this piece all the way across. Then we're going to do identically to what we did on this side. So I'm going to break that one. We are going to do a 5, provided that actually rotated around the same direction, and then a 5-way. Like this. Then we do a number 4, and then another number 5, which is an elbow. There we go. Alright. Now, I mentioned I was going to show you what I was going to do with these, and indeed I am. So, let me bring up, there we go. So, 4, if it will actually select, and we're going to put in 3 air vents on each side, because this is a pretty big space. So 1, 2, 3. Now, this is the A side, so we're going to go ahead and call these what they are. Number 5, so this is hanger upper 01. C. Now for even though it doesn't really matter, so this is 02. In fact, let's go ahead and use our normal convention here. Alright, so that didn't do a Control C at all. Control C, we'll just punch that a dozen times and maybe it will actually work. Okay, 1. So we're actually going backwards here, but that's fine. And by convention, 0, 2, and 3, we'll go ahead and do this, and this is actually going to be the tag, yeah, 12. Control C, we'll go ahead and copy that a bunch of times. Two. So, what we have here is air vent. So this is just called air vents. let's go ahead and do a Control A, transfer everything to me. I think that was just the air vents. And then we'll reselect the air vents off on the toolbar and off on the terminal. We have a decent number of batteries here, so we're going to go ahead and call that group batteries, which is a global battery group, off and off. In this case, connectors, and we'll go ahead and call this connectors hanger fighters, because there will actually be connectors on the lower portion of the hangar bay, which will likely be in use down there as well. So save. And the reason why I call it connector hanger fighters is because if you put in a control panel somewhere, control console or something like that, you could actually launch fighters by way of grabbing this group and do unlock. Therefore, all of your fighters now are going to be unlocked and ready to go. So that's why that may be a good thing. Connectors could have an inventory in them, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that on the screen there, but turn that off. Alright, sliding doors. In this case, we'll go ahead and have a group called doors sliding, which is in fact a global group. So we're going to go ahead and close those, off on the toolbar, off on the terminal. So we have all of our groups. There we go. All right. So one of the things that I like to use, and I'm already using them below, so they're going to be part of this world. We'll go ahead and select number 8. We're going to have to find them. Wire short. Anchor. Looks kind of neat. So what I'm looking for is this, force field doors. In this case, I'm going to roll this to a 3. So this is actually 3 high on force fields, which is going to be there. So I'm going to do this all the way across. I'm not going to put any stanchions anywhere. Because I want the fighters to basically have free access to get out. The other thing I want to do, and this is going to be a measure of how big the lower portion of the hangar here is, I'm going to go down 1, and this is a 5. And there's going to be a 5 on the bottom. 2. Alright, so power is going to be a problem. Alright, so this is where this needs to be. Top one was 32. So my intention would be this is going to be the floor, which means I can delete that one, that one, that one. So my corners are always the tiger stripe back. Alright, so that's a pretty decent sized hangar bay down there. And we have a few more things to do. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and delete this piece. We appear to not have enough battery power, which is probably not a surprise. So let's go ahead and put in a few more batteries. Get our battery back on. I think we are done with the force field doors, so I'm going to take those off. Cargo teleporter, I'm done with that. So we'll go ahead and put battery there and a small reactor there. Battery. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take that out. Put a battery there. We'll put a battery there. Battery there. Battery there. And two more batteries. Battery. And battery. Alright. We're going to do these on this side first. So we called these Hangar A. This is really going to be a pain. Hangar A TAC something. And we had two batteries, so this is actually going to start off as battery 3. So we're going to do a control. I'm just going to have to type really, really slow. 7. Thirteen. 14. Alright, so these are currently nobody, which is fine because we have to add the batteries on the other end, which we will go ahead and do. So what I'm going to do here is cheat. We have the 12. So actually we have 12 batteries on each side. So this is of course the B side, And you can see now we are maintaining on battery power alone, which is what I want to be able to do. So we're going to go in here. The first thing we're going to do is highlight everything. So this is a Control A. Control A. We will go ahead and transfer to me, yes. And then we will start. So we'll turn this off. In this case, we start with battery 15, backspace, backspace, Control V. We are going to change that. This is going to start out as a 0 because we only have originally the 2 batteries on this side. So this is 3. Huh, okay, I messed this up. Why do I put a 0 in front? Because it alphabetizes. A 1 and a 10 are going to show up backwards in the alphabetized list. I can speak English, I really can. So if I have a 0, 1, then 0, 1 is always going to be in front of the 10. As will all the others. So, okay, I think we corrected that. So, we'll try this again. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 13, and 14. All right, so now that those are done, we'll go ahead and put these into the group batteries, which is a Control left click on the group name, do a save, and I'm going to punch save a couple times because nothing else is working the first time, and off. Now, force field door. Force field doors are going to be interesting because these particular doors do not identify. So here's what I'm going to do. And we're going to actually have 2 different force field door groups. So even though I pasted all these in there, we're going to go ahead and go back down so we have the force field door once again. And I'm actually going to delete these lower force field doors. And the reason for that is because 0. The only force field doors that are left right now are my fighter force field doors, which is exactly what I want. These are draining the batteries rapidly. So I'm not going to rename all of these because there are 64 of them. I'm just going to put them in a group called Doors Force Field Fighters. Alright, and then we're going to turn those off. So we have a Doors Force Field Fighters. Why did I create a group separately? Because if you lock these doors, they go blue, which I thought was kind of cool. Now nothing can pass through them. They are impenetrable like any door, or green, which is then they caused it. Okay. Now, one of the other things that we're going to have to do, which we probably can do down here on the bottom, is we have to figure out exactly how we're going to do everything. Alright, let me get my force field doors back on here. At the same time, I'm going to alter this one here. So let me get back on to number 4. We're going to punch up a number 6. We're going to make sure we have our tiger orange selected, which we do. We're going to rotate that one sideways just so we can see what that one's doing. So we want that to come down and then connect on. So we're now connecting end to end. And the reason I'm doing that, we're going to go back over to bar number 8 and we're going to add a small reactor on both sides. Alright, so we need to go back over to number 4. We're going to add a T. We're going to rotate the T around in the appropriate direction, copy it back in, number 8, number 2, and then we're going to spin the reactor around so I have access to the door. Alright, there we have our reactor. Alright, now I'm going to go over here and just find a supply port, which is here. I need to find, let's go into uranium, and I need to just find uranium. So ammo, which I'm not sure why. Fuel ore. So we're actually going to take 20,000 here, which I think is going to be enough for now. And we're going to put 10,000 into each one of these, and it's going to burn through it pretty quick. I know 10,000 seems like an awful lot, but yeah, let's try that again. Now, given all the batteries inventory, this is likely going to go all the way to 15 megawatts and just stay there. So with the batteries taking a certain portion of that and every single one of these force field doors, so we may have to rethink how we're doing things. So we may actually need to put on large reactors just to make this thing work. Alright, control panel being what it is, let's do a control A. We're going to transfer these guys to me, and then we're going to change the names. So this is reactor, and this happens to be hangar A. We could actually say small a. This could be reactor small b, So these are the initial reactors, and we may end up putting more in. Obviously, with the batteries there, there's a certain amount of draw. So just out of curiosity, I just want to see, are these charging current input, current output? So they are actually charging very slowly. Okay, so the good news is the reactors actually are providing enough power for the force field doors as well as to charge the battery. Now, that probably will not last. And in fact, it's not probably, it is a mathematical certainty. And the reason I say that is because of, you see all the doors we're missing. So, what I need to figure out how to do is to add on, in fact, large reactors to this whole mess and make everything more better. So, let me go ahead and add the doors in for that's not where I want those. It's actually right here. So we see 32, and then we flip so we should, yep, be right here. Okay, so let us go ahead and go to black once again. We will go to toolbar number 1. We will come backwards to the light armor slope. We'll put the 1 in, which is our marker. Gives us something to mount to. We will go up 1, rotate, so we can get our piece there, go back to a slope, and then come up. Alright, and back to our corner, rotate around, and then to the center, which is 1 off, and then we will add the inverted corner right there. All right. Go ahead and add a few more blocks here. In this case, we change back to our tiger orange, go back to our normal block, and block. Then here is our windows, in this case, block and block. If I really wanted to continue on here, then we will do this. Of course, after all, just banging into something kills you. We were doing windows, so let's go ahead and, because we did windows on the other side, we'll go ahead and carry on with windows here. What did I do on the other side? I think I actually did them on the bottom. Yep. So So we actually have these pieces here on the bottom, which are mounting points. That's all they are. They give me something to mount to. And we will do the same thing on this side. Spin, mount, mount, and then we go back to toolbar number 9, my window, and in this case, I'm going to come out just a little bit and stick on 3 windows, 2 layers deep. So, there it is. So, now we have the entirety of the sides done. So the next project is to decide, are we doing windows or are we doing glass? So number 1, let's go ahead and start with this center section. So we know at least we're going to there. Personally, I really like glass. Glass is really neat. So let's once again, we will change to the tiger stripy black. We'll go to our slope here, and then we will add our corner piece like this. Then we have to decide how we're going to do this stuff here. So what I could do is, like I have done elsewhere, in fact, let's go ahead and look. Actually, I just looked at my time, and surprise, surprise, I am way over. So, this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.